All right. Yay. Okay, here we are. So, hello and welcome to the CNCF webinar on the ORAS project. Today we have with us Feynman Zhu, product manager and maintainer of the ORAS project, and also a PM at Microsoft Azure. He's also maintainer of the CNCF Notary project and is a CNCF ambassador. So, a couple of things that Feynman does. And Feynman, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And we'd love to talk about the ORAS project. I can disclose a short intro from my side, and then you can maybe expand on that. ORAS is a registry client, for those of you who don't know, or are learning more about the project or have just come across it. It's a registry client that enables management of artifacts, such as container images, in OCI, which is Open Container Initiative compliant registries. It also provides the CLI, this is the main feature, I think. It provides the CLI, which is the command line interface that makes this possible. Interestingly, ORAS was accepted at the CNCF sandbox level on July 13th, 2021. It's seen hundreds of contributors in the last few years, a lot of engagement grow over time, and of course, new releases and back-end stories and all of that in the recent past, including in the recent KubeCon in Atlanta. And we have multiple contributing organizations to the code and repositories. We have Feynman here, who will also walk us through how this started, how the project started, Microsoft's role in it, and also how the contributors grew in the last few years. So Feynman, if you can start with that, that would be awesome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I have been contributing to the ORAS project over the past 3 years, and I have witnessed a very strong momentum in the project. And there were a lot of contributors from different organizations and also from different open source projects joined ORAS and contributed a lot of interesting features to the ORAS project. Today, I'm gonna share what's new in ORAS 1.3. This is our latest release and the story behind the community.
That's great. Yeah. So Feynman, can you expand on the backstory here? Why did you feel the need for a project like ORAS? What was so unique at the time it started off? Microsoft's role in it? Any funny stories, any anecdotes in the background, any conversations that you may have had with other contributors, and the journey
Yeah,
to how it started essentially. Yeah.
yeah. In terms of backup and restore, I think before we sharing more about that, first of all, let's take a look at the ORAS itself. So as Benazir just mentioned, ORAS is a registry client tool, right? That means you can use ORAS to interact with your OCI registries, such as Docker Hub, GitHub Container Registry, Azure Container Registry, ECR, or any kind of registry. You can basically use ORAS to pull or push container image with your OCI artifacts to the registry. And basically you can store any kinds of artifacts, even arbitrary files in your container registry. So I guess most of you use Docker, right? You're pretty much familiar with Docker. And ORAS is also very similar to Docker. But the difference is Docker manage container images only, but ORAS expand the scope, the mission to any arbitrary files like OCI artifacts, AI models, Helm charts, and also signatures, any supply chain artifacts. So ORAS has a very wide range of the scope to help customers and developers distribute cloud-native artifacts across different cloud environments and registries. So that is what ORAS bring to the community, to the industry. And ORAS has CLI tool, has multiple SDKs. It has a very rich ecosystem powered by different organizations and also contributed by Microsoft. Another thing that I want to share, which is related to the mission that we want to accomplish in the community. So previously, most of the developers, they store container images in the registry, right? back in 2019, I think we at Microsoft, we got a lot of asks from our customers that, hey, we want to store Helm charts in the container registry. And also there are some questions like, hey, our Helm charts are stored in a separate chart museum. It takes additional maintenance cost to maintain the chart museum and also manage its authentication and authorization. So that questions inspired us to explore the potential usage of using container registry to store not only container images, but also generic artifacts, even arbitrary files. So the story starts from the Helm chart. We were looking at how can we extend the container registry to store Helm charts. That is where we begin. And when we look at the OCI image spec and distribution spec, the cross-industry standard in the OCI community, we notice that it has some limitations to store those arbitrary files and OCI artifacts. So we were thinking about how can we enable the OCI standard to support the generic file type and store such kind of OCI artifacts like Helm charts. So the Azure Container Registry team started to working on the upstream, the OCI community, and brought the idea of OCI artifacts and OCI referrals to the upstream OCI community. We spent almost 1 or 2 years to do the proof of concept in the ORAS community, in the ORAS client tool, and we invented the concept of OCI artifacts that really expand the scope of OCI registry and also the container image. So since then, we found that the container registry can also be used to store OCI artifacts, and we introduced a few properties to the original OCI image spec and also the OCI distribution spec that really makes the container registry being able to store the OCI artifacts like Helm charts. So we also brought these capabilities to the upstream, and we contributed a lot to OCI community. And eventually that became a cross-industry standard. And most of the OCI registries like ACR, Docker Hub, ECR, they all implemented the latest version of OCI spec. So right now, every developer should be able to distribute and store OCI artifacts in those registries. So typically, ORAS is a implementation of the OCI standard, OCI implementations. And back to the story of backup and restore, as we can store and distribute OCI artifacts, that means we should be able to use ORAS to pull, push, backup, and restore the container images alongside with the OCI artifacts between those environments, those registries. In container registry, as a generic storage, we have seen a lot of users, they store signatures, SBONs with their container image to ensure their integrity and authenticity, right? So those signatures, SBON, are regarded as the supply chain artifacts, and previously they are stored separately in the container registry. And when users, they want to back up and download the image along with those supply chain artifacts, they can only use Docker save and Docker load to save the image into their local environment. But Docker save has its limitations. Docker save does not support load the supply chain artifacts such as SBON, signature with the image. You can only save the image on the single image or multiple image tags into a local tarbor and load it to a container registry. So at that time, we have received a lot of customers and developers. They reach out to us and share us that, hey, why ORAS should not ORAS play a critical role to help customers and developers to download their OCI artifacts like their referrals along with their image to their local. That's part of the ORAS scope, right? So at that time, we were thinking about we should really solve the pain points from the broader community, especially for Docker users, because OC artifacts is not the first class citizen in Docker ecosystem, but in OCI, in the broader OCI ecosystem, OCI referrals are broadly used by a lot of developers. So we were starting looking at how can we enable developers and our customers to download and back up the entire repository or even the entire registry into their local environment so that they can have their local backup in case any accidental deletion or disaster happened in the container registry. Once they have their snapshot, their backup in their local environment, the developers, they can choose to restore it to any registries once they need those images and referrals, right? So that is where the backup and restore started. I do have a few end-to-end diagram to showcase what does the restore and backup work in an end-to-end developer workflow. So let me share my screen. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
All right, here we have two diagrams. So let's say if you want to back up if you want to back up an entire repository and that repository contains different images and tags. Let's say it has the backend image with multiple tags, and each tag has different referrals like signature, SBOM, and vulnerability scanning report. Those are the referrals associated with the image. So if you want to download and save the entire repository into your local environment, so here you can use ORAS backup command to back up your entire repository, or selectively back up those multiple tags along with the referrals into your local tabor. So here, ORAS should be able to help you save the target resource into a tabor file in your local environment. This is typically for disaster recovery, registry migration, or compliance and supply chain security check, or you just want to promote your container image along with those referrals from development environment to your production, to your staging environment. They should across different registries. You should use ORAS to promote those content, or use ORAS to back up your cloud environment, your cloud registry into a local environment. Once you want to use those images in the registry, you can use ORAS restore to restore the tar file to the target registry. The target registry can be another one. It does not to be the original registry that you backed up from. So you can use ORAS restore command to specify which tabor that you want to restore. Currently, we support only a single repository or single tar file, but in our next iteration, we're going to support multiple repository backup and restore. That will definitely support more complicated scenarios. I also have a live demo that I want to show you how does these commands work. So here I just open my, okay. Here's my terminal and let's zoom in. So typically, most of the developers, they started from ORAS CLI. So if you're looking at the command lines, it has a bunch of CLI commands to help you distribute and manage your container image and OC artifacts across different registries. You can use ORAS backup to back up the artifacts from registry to your local environment. It will be saved as a local topboard. It's an archive file, and you can use ORAS restore command to restore the artifacts from the local OCR image layout, the OCR topboard, to target registry. So here, in case you want to back up a container image from a public registry, let's say GitHub container registry. Here I have, I can show you, there's a central registry called, I have a sample image stored in my GitHub container registry. So here, I want to back up the GitHub container registry, this image, to my local file system. So here, I just copy the target source that I want to back up. Let's say we can back up the entire repository, ORAS CLI. So we can use ORAS backup command. We can specify the file we want to save in our local. We can call it ORAS backup R, and we can specify the target resource that we want to back up. So basically, we want to back up the entire repository, the ORAS CLI repository. So we just specified the target and the destination. Let's run it. Oh, I missed the, it should be backup, not back. Let's see. All right, so right now, ORAS is downloading the entire repository. You can see it will pull the image, the OCR referrals to your local environment. Wow, it just backed up the entire repository to a local file system and saved as an ORAS backup topboard file. And here you should be able to list what have been saved in your local file system. You should be able to use ORAS to inspect what's inside this repository in your local file system. That's magic, right? So we can use ORAS repo command. We have ORAS repo list, or we can repo text. OCI layout. We can specify the file name as our I think we should be able to specify the tags that we backed up to our local environment. So here, ORAS repo tags, and we specify the OCR layout. We can specify this flag. All right, you should be able to see which tags that we have been saved to our local environment. And we should also discover the referrals. If we're looking at, we discover this image tag, boom, you should be able to see the SBOM, the signature, the in total attestation, all of those supply chain artifacts have been saved along with your container image, right? So that demonstrated how ORAS can help you save the entire repository. That includes all of the tags inside this repository, along with the referrals. This is what Docker Save cannot achieve in the backup workflow or in the Docker Save workflow. The next step, so when customers or developers, they want to push this type of file back to the registry, how can they achieve this goal? So actually, ORAS provides ORAS restore command to help customers to restore the single topboard to the target registry. So this is where typically customers, they want to save their entire registry or repository in their local environment or in a blob storage for the disaster recovery purpose. So let's say this customer, they want to restore this image to an internal registry. I can use Azure Container Registry as an example, but you can use any OCR registry as your own. So here I can use ORAS restore command to specify a destination registry, and I will specify an Azure Container Registry as my designated OCR registry, and I will push and restore the entire repository to my destination registry. So if you're looking at this example, you can use ORAS restore to restore the single tarball to different destinations. You can include the referrals. You can also specify any private registry. So here, by default, ORAS restore will include the referrals in its backup and restore operation. And when we run ORAS restore, let's specify the input. We can specify, I have a container registry called Feynman ACR. And we can specify repo name, ORAS tar demo. The input should, this is our destination registry, and the input should be specify the file that we just saved. I think we just saved the file name as ORAS backup.tar. This is our tarball. So here, we should be able to restore the tarball to the destination registry. Just run it. Okay, it tells me it has found 3 tags in this repository. So this is the tag list, right? So if you're looking at the progress bar, right now ORAS is helping the developers to push the tarball to the destination registry. It may take a while, but should be very fast. All right, just finished. It tells you successfully restored 3 tags to the destination registry to my ACR. So let's go back to the ACR portal. So here I can open my container registry, and if you log into the ACR, you should be able to see what have been restored to your container registry. So here, if we're looking at the target repository, which has pushed the ORAS tar demo, this repository to the destination registry. So if you're looking at last update date, this is the date of the today, right? And we have 3 tags that have been restored from my local file system. So this is the one of the tags that we restored to this registry. And if we're looking at this image, it's actually a multi-arc image. It has AMD64, ARM64, and the multiple architecture in this image. That means the entire architecture has been restored to the image. And also, if you're looking at the referrals portal, the referrals blade, you can see the SBOM, the signature, the in total attestation, all of those supply chain artifacts as referrals have been preserved into my container registry. So that is basically how ORAS backup and restore works.
Okay. I wanted to check with you, Feynman. Thank you for demonstrating all of this, and I'm sure it's useful for folks to know how to get started, for instance, and what are the initial benefits of using ORAS. But I mean, as we've gone through a lot of these features, I'm curious to understand from you, how has
Mhm.
it inspired so many contributions from the community itself? Like, I know you mentioned the backstory that, that you kind of got some of these questions from the product side in Microsoft and everything, but for
Yeah.
it to expand into the community with so many contributing organizations is also very cool. I mean, it actually shows that there's more interest in the community to kind of see what problems it can solve. So I'm interested in understanding that from all the folks and the contributions that you see in the community, do you see a keen interest in probably just creating a uniform CLI for this, or does it go beyond that into something deeper where it's also to constantly improve the restore function as you've described and as you've demonstrated for us?
Yeah, that's a good question. ORAS is not only a CLI tool, it has a very rich ecosystem, including the SDKs written in different languages. If you're looking at this, the list of this page, so ORAS has multiple SDKs, including Java, Python, .NET, Rust, and Golang, right? So that's the ecosystem that we constantly attract a lot of developers to our community. And the developers are the mainstream contributors in open source community. So the first step is we are quite opening to any SDKs to be accepted into ORAS community. So that really opens the door to developers with different backgrounds, right? So the second thing I want to highlight is ORAS has been adopted by a very wide range of the customers and developers, and also open source projects in the ecosystem. So when those open source projects, they use ORAS, they may notice a few limitations or issues in the ORAS community or in the ORAS CLI tools SDK. They will consider contributing back or make the ORAS better in their usage. Let's say, for example, here we have a list of the downstream adoption, the open source projects who integrated ORAS with their open source projects. We have seen Helm Community, Jenkins, Argo. So these well-known projects, they integrate ORAS SDKs in their downstream implementations. And when they run their projects, when they have users run their projects with OCR registries, the ORAS is under the hood. They may surface some problems or limitations when they use their implementations, use their open source projects. Their maintainers and developers may notice that, hey, there might be limitations in the upstream ORAS side. We may want to contribute this feature back to the ORAS community. So that is where the ORAS contributors come from. The contributors come from the downstream integrators, open source projects, and also the end users. We have seen the end users like G Healthcare, they actively contribute their ideas and feedback to the ORAS community, which also help us to constantly improve the quality and user experience of ORAS. Contribution means not only pull requests. GitHub issues is also kind of a way to contribute to the community. So I think the feedback from end users, the integrations from the downstream projects, and also the rich ecosystem of the ORAS SDK, these three aspects contribute to the ORAS community growth and also the contributor growth.
Yeah. What are the next milestones that the project is looking at? I'm wondering if this is something that is also defined together with the community over your community calls, or if folks just bring up something that they notice and they go like, oh, maybe restore and backup could use something even more futuristic in the future or something like that, and probably use of AI components or something like that. So I'll let you speak about that for a little bit because that gives us a good insight into the community angle of things.
Yeah, talking about the future milestones, we want to achieve more.
Yeah.
The first thing we are looking at is to enhance the backup and restore capabilities, especially for the multi-repository backup. I just demonstrated how to back up a single repository from remote registry to local file system across different registries. But a lot of developers and customers, they were looking at backing up their entire registry or multiple repositories, because in microservices, it has not only a single component, it has multiple components. So those components are stored and packaged into several repositories. So we have to consider how to help customers and developers easily back up multiple repositories and restore them to the destination registry. So briefly speaking, the multi-repo backup and restore is our next priority that we're gonna support in the ORAS community. And the second thing is the multi-arc image support. We have been implemented in this feature for quite a while, and we have seen contributions from a lot of open source projects like OpenTofu, the well-known infrastructure as a code implementation. And OpenTofu, they recently contributed a feature called multi-arc artifact management to ORAS that really enables the developers to package OpenTofu modules into different artifacts, and ORAS can pack them together into a multi-arc artifact. That way, you can expand the scope from multi-arc image to multi-arc artifacts. That is just, I touched it a little bit, but going forward, we definitely want to enable multi-arc artifact and image management and distribution, because in the AI edge, we have seen a lot of users, they distribute and deploy their multi-arc image and also their packages to the edge, to IoT environment. Those are architecture platform agnostic, so we have to support multi-arc and multi-platform artifact management. We have seen GE Healthcare, they use Terraform with ORAS to package their infrastructure as a code and deploy them to different hospitals. That's very interesting scenario. So those two things that we are looking at for our next milestone. We can always expand the scope. If you are interested in contributing to the project, we can work together to make the project better and fit into different scenarios.
That's great. You spoke about the collaboration with OpenTofu. That's interesting, because OpenTofu was also accepted into the CNCF Sandbox project recently, just this year, I believe, I think around April. I mean, as you said, it seemed like a natural collaboration with OpenTofu based on something similar that they were doing, and it expanded the scope also for ORAS. And I'm wondering if there are any other projects that you can think of, where a future or a present collaboration is something that you're considering with them, because it will help improve the features of ORAS and help the usability.
In addition to OpenTofu, I think we are also collaborating with a few CI/CD or DevOps projects. Jenkins is the one. Jenkins is a very classic, very popular CI/CD platform, and Jenkins is working with us to develop the ORAS Java SDK. Java is one of the most popular language in the ecosystem. So if we can enable Java developers use ORAS, that means we can introduce more contributors and use cases in ORAS ecosystem. Argo CD is a CNCF graduated project. We're also collaborating with Argo community to expand their scope and their scenarios in interacting with OCR registries. So basically, Argo is visioning to use ORAS SDKs to manage and interact with OCR registries and distribute their manifests and the GitOps packages in OCR registries. So this is also a trend that GitOps is embracing OCI and ORAS. So Argo CD is the one that we are collaborating, and we want to have more deep connection and collaboration.
Okay, great. I think as we finally come towards the end of our segment, the last question would be about the latest release of ORA's version 1.3.0. And if you'd like to talk about it, anything that you'd specifically like to highlight. Of course, there are like 3 key features that have been highlighted also in the CNCF blog post that Feynman's written, which is the portable backup and restore of repositories and artifacts. We've kind of seen a little demonstration of that already, and multi-platform image and artifact management and rich formatted output for scripting and pipelines. So, probably points 2 and 3, if you want to kind of expand on that a little bit. And yeah, and then, I think this is a good start for folks to get to know of the project and its scope and come back for more later. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the highlights from ORAS 1.3, the latest release, I just covered 2 of them. The multi-arc image and artifact management, backup and restore. Another thing that we did enhancement in this release is the developer experience, which is related to the troubleshooting and debugging experience. So we can go back to this blog post. So basically, we supported scripting and automation scenario with formatted output. Previously, customers have to write very complicated scripts to chain different operations together in their shell scripts, in their pipelines, right? Customers may want to stitch several operations like pull, push, and attach operations together to achieve their end-to-end workflow. Previously, ORAS is not that easy to help customers to get the output from the last operation, the last command executing result. And we introduced the -- format, the format flag, to help customers and developers to consume the output from the last step. So basically, you can chain different operations together and achieve a high-level goal, like you want to automate the whole process. Let's say if you want to digest the image that you built from the last step. So right now, you can use ORAS to attach the signature to the image that you built from the last step, and you should be able to output the digest during the first step and put the output together, and you can consume the output from your last step. So basically, the format flag is pretty helpful for developers who want to achieve end-to-end automation and scripting scenario. We also polished a little bit on the debug logs and also the verbal logs, as well as the error message. So anytime when you encounter issues, you should be able to self-troubleshoot by looking at the debug logs. This is also really helpful for developers who want to have their self-service troubleshooting instead of raising issues to the upstream community. So yeah, the developer experience is the one that we enhanced in this release, and I hope we can hear more feedback from more developers.
Great. I think that almost concludes what we have in store for today. And yeah, I mean, any last thoughts on what's next, also with the coming new year, and any plans for the project that are like immediate that you're focused on with the team?
Well, at the end, I want to thank you all of the contributors. I'm really grateful to working with the contributors from not just Microsoft, but also the broader ecosystem. We have contributors from Red Hat, from Amazon, from OpenTofu, and also a lot of contributors, they're just individual contributors. They contribute to ORAS with their love. They use their spare time to make the project better, make the experience better. So I think without those contributors, we cannot make it today. So the last thing is to thanks all of the contributors and also the end users. And what's next? I think this answer should be bring to the broader community. I think I just shared what we want to focus in the next iteration, but we are open to more options and more voice.
Great, that's wonderful. All right. Thank you, Feynman. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks for this wonderful time that we've had discussing a great project, which is not just something that is very centric towards Microsoft and the product side of things, but has also expanded broadly into the CNCF community. And we hope to serve more folks with it and also to see more contributions there from all sorts of organizations to just make the experience of dealing with the OCA registry is better for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.